The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Reagan Kelly, and this week I am joined by two very cool co-hosts.
Nuts Heininger.
Shane Kelly.
And this week we are talking about Nuts.
Nuts.
The game Nuts.
Nuts.
A game developed by June Paul Mutzsch, Char, and Torfi. And that is a group of developers out of Iceland, out of Reykjavik. And this game is published by Noodlecake. Noodlecake, you guys will all know as the publisher of a huge variety of games on iOS and a variety of other platforms, and Steam and so on. Publishers to tons of games that we've talked about on this show, not the least of which is the Alto games I believe they published, at least on some platforms, and a bunch of other great stuff. Noodlecake comes up all the time.
Mm-hmm. And the burgeoning Icelandic game development community.
This is such a funny thing. When I said we were doing this on the the Discord for the show, I said they're from Iceland. So probably John knows them, right? Friend of the show, John of Gaming in the Wild, who hangs out in our Discord. He lives in Reykjavik, and I was like, John, you probably know these guys, right? And we had a little chuckle about it, and then like a week later, he was like, actually, yes.
Turns out I do.
He does know at least one of them from some work with one of the developers, at least involved in this, is part of a community of developers in Iceland called Game Makers Iceland, I think. And I think he knows them through that somehow. So anyway, small town Reykjavik, I guess.
Yeah, it's not. I think literally. I think it's just not a big place. This has been Iceland Corner. Thank you all for listening.
This has been three
to
people who know very little about Iceland and have one friend who lives there telling you about what we think about Iceland. Nuts. Yeah. Nuts is a really interesting game. I think if you look at it, first of all, we should say where this game is, because I played it on Apple Arcade. So this was a Apple Arcade game that is now also out. Initially, it was like an Apple Arcade exclusive launch. I think it was only exclusive there for like a couple of weeks, but it's also since launched on Steam for Windows and Mac, and also on the Nintendo Switch. I'm not sure if it's coming to any other platforms, but I think any of those is probably a good option. I played across a few different devices. I started on my iPhone, both with a touchscreen and with a controller, switched over to my iPad, and then finished the game on my Mac. So I got a variety of experiences, and I think this is a really, really cool game. How did you guys play it?
I played on iPhone using touch controls, and I think I wish I would have played it on something else. It's very smooth for iPhone. I think it handles first person pretty well. I just never felt incredibly comfortable with it on iPhone. So I think if I starting fresh, and if you're out there listening and you have something else to play it on other than straight up touch controls iPhone, I think I recommend playing it on something else. Though I think it's just hard to do first person entirely on an iPhone. Mm-hmm. I think they do it good for what you're trying to do. I just think it's probably better on Switch or with like a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, I won't belabor the point, since I feel like we need to get into talking about the game itself. But I agree with you there. And having played it across a bunch of different platforms now, it does work pretty well with first-person touch controls. But if you have the option to play with a controller, that's great. If you have the option to play with a mouse and keyboard, that's by far what I would recommend. Because this is a game about moving around in first person. We'll talk about like what you're doing in first person in a second, but you're moving around in first person. And doing a lot of sort of like small interactions, like doing things like moving small objects like controls on a camera, or sending faxes, or controlling a VCR, that really benefit from having like fine grained control. So Controller is good if you can. On any of these platforms, you should be able to use a controller, and mouse and keyboard even better if you can.
Anytime you have a game where part of the controls for your gamepad is to kind of free the pointer from the center of the screen and just let you click on anything in your field of view, it's kind of just always a little bit of an awkward piece of interactivity. It really did feel like, well, this would be very, very easy with a mouse, but it becomes kind of modal when you put that on like a little switch that you hit X to flip. Yeah. But that said, I thought that the way that it presented interfaces within the world of the game was really, really clever. So yeah. I don't want to rag on the actual UI of the game for you, the player. I want to talk about the fact that this game has all these different pieces of like electronic gear, like CRT tube TVs, and like connecting those up to these wireless trail cameras and running those, and a recording facility.
I felt like this game was made for Reagan.
It does kind of feel like it's for a fan of CRTs. I bet Reagan's pretty positive on that aspect of the game. The ability to like print out the pictures and like make your crazy person
collage
diagram of like, well, the squirrel's here, so where does it live? And drawing lines between things on your like corkboard.
It goes to the top. This goes all the way to the top.
None of this is going to make any sense for folks who haven't listened yet, who haven't played yet or watched a trailer. I want to give a quick setup of the game. This is a game about going out into the woods. You're a part of an ecological impact study. So you are loading up a sort of a trailer or camper, and you're going out into the woods to study endangered squirrels in a forest called Melmoth Forest. It's supposed to be pretty remote, and it's potentially at risk for demolition or for like development by a seemingly kind of evil or uncaring corporation that is planning to tear down a bunch of trees, build dams, build some kind of building complexes, that sort of thing. And you're trying to document the activities of the endangered and very bizarre squirrels living in this area. So in order to do that, you're given a few tools. The main things you're going to be using are the trail cams that Shane mentioned, which are basically just like big DSLR type cameras on tripods, and a kind of very antiquated VCR and CRT TV assembly connected to a photo printer and a fax machine.
Yeah, well, we should say antiquated to, us, but this game takes place solidly in 1997.
Yes, that's true.
And they I think they make a point to tell you that it's they say 15 years ago in 1982, we did this same thing to save this forest. We documented these squirrels and it saved the forest. So go and document these squirrels again. We think it's going to save this forest. And I do think they make a point to say, like, you're not just out here on some low budget crazy trip using stuff from 25 years ago. It's just literally, it takes place in 1997. So this is actually maybe the height of technology. You have a fax machine out in a trailer in the middle of the forest. I mean, we could only dream of that in 1997.
Wireless cameras in 1997 would have been absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, just think about the transmission technology involved.
You print a photograph in 1997, and it looks good. That's a high-quality printer right there.
Yeah, I mean, you know where the money on this is going, not to you.
So you're not running a cable from the camera all the way back to the trailer, which would be a little more realistic. But one thing I will say for this game in terms of simulating cables, this is perhaps my favorite corded telephone in video game history.
I noticed this too. They did an amazing job with it. I mean, we haven't even talked about the graphics yet, and we need to, because it's one of the two things that really, really drew me into this game. But damn, that's a beautifully simulated curly Q or pigtail style telephone cord. Just amazingly done.
Yeah. Feels good.
Okay. I think the two things that really, really drew me into this game are the incredibly unusual graphical style and it's like weird light hint of bizarre mystery to the squirrels and the squirrel behavior. So let's talk about the art style first. What did you guys make of the visuals here?
Very like appealing, and really definitely makes this game stand out in a unique way very, very quickly. I'm not the best on the show at at describing the visual style, but I'll say as someone who's not very educated on different art styles, that was one of the things that stood out to me very quickly in this game, is that I can't think of a game that we've played that really looks like this and kind of draws the world in this way. How would you describe this art style or this design style? This is the part where we're all like, "Dang it, where's Laura?"
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so I'll take a stab at it, but basically, this is in a lot of ways, this game reminded me of a game that's been on my mind because it just had a 5-year anniversary. So maybe it's that, but it reminds me of Firewatch in a lot of ways. But while Firewatch had a very somewhat cartoony but pretty realistic take on the kind of natural setting you're in, this game blows the color out completely and basically doesn't use textures on the 3D models. What they do instead is they come up with a few really good, really striking color palettes and use those to indicate the stuff that's out there in the world. And they're neon, they're hot colors during the daytime. And then at night, they're just these nice blue, cool colors. And it helps with this kind of day-night aesthetic that the game has, and which is kind of reinforced by the way the game plays out, which I'm sure we'll talk about more. But the look of the game really, it's cutouts, it's outlines, it's really bold. Which for a game about like watching something tiny moving and running around like way off, it's actually really effective. Like if you're trying to watch a little squirrel, it really helps that squirrel is like super bright and not the same color as anything else. So that it kind of makes up for the fact that you're looking at through a simulated CRT and a like poorly focused camera pointed in probably halfway the wrong direction. So I think that aspect of it is pretty neat, and it wasn't quite as gorgeous as something like Firewatch, but like this game doesn't need to be necessarily going there.
I think this is an extremely pretty game. Like the main thing to understand about this is that like it's doing this style of cell shading that I don't think I've ever seen before. Nothing that completely matches up to this. It's doing these like hypercolor day glow color palettes. Usually, like for any given scene, it picks like seems like 3 or 4 colors and then does sort of shading within that. But it's doing it all in this totally real time way. So like objects might be orange and the trees are sort of teal green or blue, and the sky is a bright yellow, that sort of thing with a color palette. And everything has these incredibly bold lines. So this must be, I think, very hard to achieve in 3D, in a 3D game like this. But everything has these bold outlines that looks like somebody has done like a poster illustration of it, right? So, you look at something like your camera, and your camera might be bright orange against a cool blue background, and it's got yellow lines for all of the details of the camera, but the actual like surfaces of the camera are totally flat. And so it makes every frame look like it's been like hand illustrated, or not hand illustrated. It looks more like a computer illustration, like a really good technical illustration, but with a color palette that's been like blown out in a really hot or really cool kind of way. It just is it's a really stunning looking game.
Yeah.
I think the thing that it reminded me of most, which is also an Apple Arcade game and not really similar in any way, but like it reminded me of Manifold Garden, which Manifold Garden is all about this like bizarre architecture, like super, super intricate architecture, right? And like impossible recursive architecture. But here it's applying, what's really wild to me about this is it's applying this like really bold art style to natural settings. This feels like it ought to be totally incompatible, right? This day glow poster art style meets forest life. It feels like it ought to be this like completely incompatible thing, and yet it super works. It's really, really cool.
I just thought of another one that this isn't a perfect comparison, but like, Super Hot and how they present the world to you, where like the entire background is white or like shades of white and gray, and then the stuff that is important that you interact with or is trying to kill you is like super bold and bright on the screen. That's kind of the same thing with this game. Imagine instead of like a white background, everything is like a cool teal. And then the things you can interact with are like a bright red, and they all have a very noticeable outline. Like everything is really readable and way more intricate than a Super Hot, but that same sort of like, you're going to look at a screen and it's all going to be a big blast of like the same couple colors and really spell things out for you. Where can you go? What can you pick up? What can't you pick up?
Yeah, so I don't know how much else there is for us to say apart from like you should watch a trailer for this game if you haven't, because it looks stunning and you'll get a really good picture of like what I'm talking about with like within 10 seconds of the trailer. It has an amazing trailer. Yeah. But the other thing that the trailer did that really drew me into this game, they describe it as a surveillance mystery game. So, it's a game about like using this technical equipment to sort of like spy on these squirrels in this forest and like to see what they're doing and what their behavior is like.
This game asks, how do you surveil a squirrel? And the answer is, climb up a tree and act like you're nuts.
Nuts!
Shane, that's a really, really bad joke.
Shane opened that Laffy Taffy like 10 years ago, and he's been waiting for the right moment to, in context, drop that joke. It finally happened.
There's a moment in the trailer where you find, a big part of this is finding where the squirrels keep their stash of nuts, right? Or of acorns. And there's a moment in the trailer where you find one of these stashes, and in amongst the nuts are a bunch of sticks of dynamite. And the voice of so you have it's such a funny moment.
You haven't even talked about the NPCs like who are both great, even though only one of them is voiced.
Right. What is her name? I think it's Nina.
This is another way this reminded me of Firewatch, actually. The relationship with Nina.
You brought up the Firewatch connection during the art style, which I see, but I think the way bigger connection to Firewatch is this side, the game itself. Instead of investigating like spooky teens and what's going on, you're investigating spooky squirrels and what's going on. It's you're going out into the woods to do something that seems normal. You're going to look at something and it's all going to be fine. And then while looking at something, it's not what it seems.
I don't know whether your answers will require we save them for the spoiler break or not, but when I saw this moment in the trailer, and even more so when I got to this moment in the game, the finding the stash of nuts that has a bunch of dynamite with it, and like going back to your camper and getting on the phone with Nina, and what is a squirrel doing with a bunch of dynamite? Why is that there? Something about that like just implies like a really, really strange situation, right? And like,
it's a great hook.
It's a great hook.
And
in that moment, hook. I didn't know where the game was going to go with that. That's like the last moment in the trailer, and it really leaves you wondering, like, okay, this could go one of two ways. These squirrels are finding dynamite in the forest because something mysterious is happening there, or these squirrels are terrorists. And like, I did not know which way this game was going to go.
They have learned to manufacture dynamite. That was my first thought was, clearly these squirrels have learned to manufacture dynamite in the way that we understand dynamite.
I just really expected that like the next scene was going to be like, we found the other squirrel's lair. He's got a gun. Run.
Yeah. Oh shit, that squirrel's a cop.
You know what that reminds me of? That classic panel from Hellboy where they find the monkey. He says he's got a gun. Blam, blam.
Nuts.
So I'm not going to spoil for you here which way this game swerves with it, but I will say that this is a game that takes its environmental message pretty seriously. So it's very concerned with, the fate of this forest and the fate of these endangered squirrels. And they are the world's weirdest squirrels because their habit is that every single night, without fail, they travel the exact same path down to the second from wherever it is that they spend their time during the day to their stash of nuts at night. And so each day or each chapter of the game, you are tasked with something slightly different, but usually something along the lines of find out where the squirrel keeps his nuts and use the cameras to track him from point A to point B. Let's talk about the actual mechanics of doing that, because essentially these are puzzles, right? Each of these sort of chapters is essentially a puzzle where you have to kind of loop through, move the cameras a bit, watch the tapes, move the cameras a bit, watch the tapes. How did that work for you guys? Did you find it frustrating, or did you find it kind of interesting? How did it work for you?
I thought it was interesting. I wound up having some save file issues. So I wound up doing the first 2 levels, both twice, right? My first time through kind of the tutorial up to actually exactly the point you were talking about, that that squirrel's going to blow up the world. The first time I went through it, it took me 20 tries, right? Just a ton of nights, But the second time I was doing it, even though I had totally forgotten, I actually had gone out, I was like, okay, I just need to get back to where I was. Where was that goddamn pile of nuts? And I walked around, and that's the thing. They hide these things well enough that even if you know generally where it is and you've found it before, these piles of nuts are hard to find. Mm-hmm. They're very well hidden. And going back through it, I kind of got a little bit more of a rhythm going with how I positioned the cameras. And then by the time I was playing the next new level after that, I was moving very quickly around and positioning the camera. So I found it to be interesting and intentionally clunky, you're handling heavy 90s tech, mm-hmm. But it does get really fluid once you start plopping these things and having a pretty good idea of well, if he goes left, I'll catch him going this way with this camera, and if he goes right, I'll catch him this way with this camera.
Yeah.
Figuring it out or moving out ahead of the squirrel and figuring out where he'll be. So really, really neat.
Yeah, I think it's the interface is really cool. The sort of intentional clunkiness of it definitely kind of makes the whole thing feel a little bit tactile. I did find myself kind of wishing some of these levels get a little sprawling. And when we're talking about trailing a squirrel for a minute of real time, but squirrels move very fast and unpredictably. So if you're watching it in the slow motion mode, it might be actually I don't know how slow it is exactly, but it felt 5 minutes or more of squirrel movement at sort of slightly slowed, more manageable speed. It's really slow, and the areas are really large. So I found the first few areas, like you, Shane, I initially started kind of wow, this is kind of hard to manage. But then I kind of got a feel for how to use the cameras and everything. And then that got quite a bit easier. And then the level started getting more difficult, and I kind of lost that advantage by the fact that the biggest issue I started having was that you started being in areas that were really spread out. And it could take quite a bit of time to kind of complete that loop. I'd turn on the cameras, I'd skim to wherever I needed to see in the tape. Oh, okay, looks like this time he's going to the left. I need to move some cameras over to see where he's going next. Reset. It's the next day. Go out, find the cameras, move them. And that travel from the camper to the cameras and then back, particularly towards the end, felt really long at times. It's not these massive areas, but it certainly was a lot of schlepping. And so I kind of started finding myself wishing there was some way to make that a little faster, whether that be something like a menu option to insta, head back to the camper without having to walk back myself or something like that. I could see why they might not want to do that, but when this game is so much about like sort of intentionally making you use clunky interfaces manually, and that's part of it. That's part of the joy of this game, actually. But there were definitely times where that started to wear on me a little bit.
Yeah, that's really where I had a lot of friction playing this game with touch controls on my iPhone. It is like, intentionally clunky, and I think that's an interesting design choice. It just kind of compounds when playing on a phone is also clunky for not like interesting and fun ways, but more just like kind of annoying ways. So when you are really trying to maneuver the camera in the right spot and navigate in these worlds, I found myself more like knowing what I want to do, but not just being able to execute it in the way that I want to, which was more annoying. So that's where, I don't want to belabor it because this is a cool game, but that's where I was like, ooh, I should have just played this not on my phone.
Yeah.
But I did purposefully choose, like, kind of for the podcast to do it on my phone because it's an Apple Arcade game. This company has a good reputation of putting out iPhone games, so I wanted to see, like, this is a first-person game. Like, if anyone's going to do it well on an iPhone, it's probably going to be these guys, or at least this publisher would put, would approve something with good iPhone controls. And again, it's good for first person, but it's still just like, I don't know that there'll ever be a like first person game, especially like this, that you're just like, wow, this feels great on my iPhone.
This feels to me a little bit like, I don't know exactly when these folks kind of hooked up with Apple Arcade, but and I'm also totally speculating here because I don't know, any inside details about how the Apple Arcade program works. But something I've seen a lot is that at least very early on with Apple Arcade, with games like Manifold Garden, which I felt a lot of parallels between this and that, Apple Arcade was going around scooping up interesting short indies that could work on all of their platforms. But probably didn't begin their lives as designed for iPhone, right? So like looking at something like Manifold Garden, which I had a very similar experience with that, like Manifold Garden works on iOS okay, but with degraded visuals and slightly clunkier controls. And if you really want the proper experience, it's really best played on something like a Mac or PC, and especially in that game's case, PC, because their Mac version was kind of problematic. At least when I played it. I felt sort of the same about this one. I think this game would be. I played it on a 5K iMac with a decent graphics card, and it's great. It's great.
Yeah,
looks great. And I think it'd be even better on like a Windows PC, where I just sort of find that these sorts of things tend to run a little better. They're usually not constrained by like incredibly mediocre graphics cards and other stuff like that. And then it would also probably be great on a Switch. I think they did a really, really good job of taking this like bold line art style and making it sort of degrade gracefully onto lower resolution devices. Like looking at it on a phone, it still looked good. It was just like mostly control issues, and I think it would work great on a Switch as well.
Yeah, like 95% of my gaming is on the Switch at this point, and for whatever reason, for this game, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna for the podcast, I'm gonna do the iPhone experience. But I really don't want to sit on this for too long. I had it
on Apple Arcade. That's why, because I have the Apple Arcade activated right now, and so it's so much more. I saved like $15-20 doing that. So how much does this cost on Switch? Actually, I don't want to speak out of turn there, but that's the power of subscription models, is they'll make me use it on a device that's not ideal.
Yeah, it looks like it's $19.99 on Switch.
Yeah, so I saved me $19.99,
which I think is honestly like a totally fair price for this game.
Yeah,
but if you're already an Apple Arcade subscriber, if you can play this on, I would say at the very least play this with a controller. You're gonna have a much better time. And if you can, play it on something with a larger screen. I think it plays great on an iPad with a controller, and I think it plays really well on a Mac with a controller or mouse and keyboard. And I would go with the mouse and keyboard. Let's not belabor this point any further. We've got it. So there's not a whole lot else to talk about with Nuts. I guess the last thing I would mention is that it does have, I thought, a really good soundtrack. It's nothing like that stands out incredibly. It's mostly ambient music. There's a nice song over the credits that I thought was nice, but for the most part, it's sort of ambient music. But it does do like something. It's a sort of responsive music, so it has like chill ambient music and it has more tense ambient music. And there are definitely like moments in the game where it's scripted to like smoothly switch from one to the other. And it does that quite well.
When the squirrels roll out that tank that they built, I thought the ambient music really kicked it up a notch. It went, yeah. No, I agree. I did. It's very subtle. All of the sound and music and everything in this game is subtle, but I think it works really, really well.
Yeah.
And the sounds of the forest.
Yeah. I think it makes pretty good use of Foley too.
The crunch of the leaves.
Mm-hmm. It does have amazing Foley work. Like if you just pull up the title screen, there's like a sound of, I think it's an acorn hitting against a CRT television or something like that. And you hear it and you're like, they put a microphone and dropped an acorn on a CRT television for that sound. It is that sound. Like they did not. That was like this is some like they did serious Foley on this, I think. Or if they didn't, they have a really good Foley library.
Reagan, you were like, based off of the resonance of that nut drop, I think this is a 1995 Samsung CRT. And then you went into your closet and found that exact model and recreated the sound.
It's like, no, I was wrong. It's an Ikegami Sushinki. Yeah, no, it's really neat. I thought it sounded really good. Play this game with headphones if you can. It's got I think it's also got 3D audio, or like it's doing at least very nice like stereo work to kind of give you a sense of space with the sound.
Yeah, there's a scene where you get right in the middle of the squirrel Satan worship circle, and in the 3D audio. Yeah, it's wonderful. You can hear, if you turn your head, it turns with you. It's really,
by the way, in case
really
it's not clear, we're bullshitting here. I could very easily see someone listening to this and going in with some expectations set for something that the game doesn't deliver. And I honestly would have loved to had a squirrel Satan worship scene in this. So now that you've mentioned it, I'm terribly disappointed. Nuts. So yeah, I would say overall, I definitely recommend checking this game out. I think it's really neat.
Yeah.
And especially if you have an Apple Arcade subscription and a Mac that you feel is like up to snuff for a first-person 3D game. For me, I found cranking the resolution down a couple of notches helped a lot with performance on a 5K iMac. 5K is a lot of pixels to push for a game, even with one with a sort of flat art style like this. So, but once I did that, I was very, very pleased with the performance. And recommend checking it out. Do we have some time for what's making us happy this week?
Yeah, and we should say, I think we're going to do a spoiler after to kind of talk a little bit more about the story and some of the story beats. So if
there's not a ton more to talk about, but we wanted to talk about the ending a little bit. So if you want to stick around after what's making us happy this week, we'll have a little spoiler break for, talk about it for a quick sec. Nate, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I don't know if you and our listeners have heard of this very little known director. His name is Miyazaki. Have you all heard of him before?
Oh my God! I'm literally one of the
first name Mia, last name Zaki. That's a name to learn.
Literally, I'm gonna have to think of something else because one of the things I was considering saying was my making me happy this week was a Miyazaki movie that I watched for the first time this week. So go right ahead.
Oh, wow, crazy. So obviously, I'm joking. Miyazaki, one of the most famous, artists, directors of all time. Anyway, I have not watched. That's just been a giant gap in my movie fandom. I've literally never seen a Miyazaki movie.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
And which did you watch?
I've watched 3 in the last 4 days. Our our older daughter is getting to the age where like it just felt like these would be cool movies to watch with her. And so I have now watched Spirited Away, of course, Howl's Moving Castle, and Totoro. And surprise, surprise, they're wonderful. Mm-hmm. I was.
You're just mainlining serotonin right there.
Yeah, right. It's been great.
Back to back for the first time. Wow.
I have no new or interesting takes on these, wildly heralded films. So I'll just say that, like, I'm glad to have finally taken the jump in. Obviously Spirited Away, I think, was my favorite. After that, I thought Howl's Moving Castle was interesting. I feel like I need to watch it again to really understand everything that was going on. And then Totoro, let me get that cat bus. I want to get that cat bus.
God, so my daughter is very obsessed with Totoro right now. We literally watched it again today because she wants to watch it every day. And when we get in the car on our way to or from daycare, she says, Totoro song, Totoro song, Totoro song. And I have to play the Totoro soundtrack off of Spotify, which is in Japanese, but she doesn't care. She just wants to hear the Totoro song.
God, I wish it weren't Paw Patrol in my house.
Totoro, she's liked all of them, but Totoro seems to stuck with her the most too, which is interesting out of all of those. But I think it's Cat Bus and Giant and Totoro. Totoro is adorable. So
Totoro, when I've always liked Miyazaki's movies, but I think that I'd always thought of like Totoro as like one of his not lesser movies. It's like a widely beloved thing, right? But like I thought like, okay, well, this is what the thing that he did for little kids, and then he did these other movies for grown-ups, right? And
for us adult weebs,
I've now watched Totoro maybe more than any other movie in my life, but at the very least more than any other Miyazaki movie. And I have to say, every time I see it, I still love it, which I can't say for any other piece of media that my daughter has foisted on me. And I remember like reading somewhere, like Miyazaki has this had this thing he used to say about filmmaking, which is that he said that popular movies should have an entrance that is low and wide and an exit that is high and purified. And I think that's great. A lens to look at his movies through. Totoro, it's like everybody loves Totoro, the big friendly cat creature that lives in the woods. Children love him. He's a friend to all children. And then you come out of that movie and it's like about this. It's just, I mean, it's so beautiful. It's about the children and their love for their mother and the horrible fear of losing your parents as a child. And it's just such a beautiful goddamn movie. And I've seen it now freaking 30 times this month, I swear to God. And I still think it's a beautiful damn movie. I'm so lucky that my kid is into that and not like, I don't know what, something that would annoy me quite a bit more. Almost literally anything else in the world would annoy me.
Yeah, I've been really happy about. So the last month has basically been me watching Miyazaki with our daughter, and also I'm watching Avatar: The Last Airbender for the first time with her.
Tight.
And which is awesome, which I could talk about, for a long time now, but I won't. But yeah, I'm like it's been a good excuse to dip into these things that I kind of always wanted to watch, but have just never committed to, because she's really enjoying them as well. Though it's funny, Lola has already watched all of Avatar. Her and Molly watched it a while ago. I'm on leave right now from work for our other daughter, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to use this time to get caught up on some of the stuff that I've wanted to watch. And I will watch it with her, so it's a bonding experience. It's been great.
I'll just kind of merge my what's making me happy this week with yours then, and say that I finally got around to watching Porco Rosso, which I'd never seen before this week, and Wednesday liked that one too, although not as much as Kitty Bus and
Cat Bus.
She just loves the Kitty Bus.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
Right?
Who doesn't? I don't have any tattoos, and I think my first tattoo is going to be cat bus.
But yeah, I would recommend Porco Rosso. And I, because I'm watching with a child, I'm basically restricted to watching the dubs, which I don't usually do for these sorts of things. But
yeah,
the dub first of all, the dub on Totoro is, I think, one of the greatest movie dubs of all time. But the dub on Porco Rosso is great because it has, what's his name? First Batman.
Adam West?
No, not that one. The movie Batman.
Val Kilmer, George Clooney.
No, you're going in the wrong order. Before that, Shane, help me out here. Who played Batman in the Tim Burton Batman?
Oh,
you're both failures, and so am I.
This is the part where listeners are just screaming at their headphones.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. Thank you, Gene.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton does the voice of Porco Rosso, the pig who is also a World War I veteran flying ace, and he does it in just such an understated way. It's such a great film. It's like one part Casablanca, one part Miyazaki, and the dub is great. If you're watching with children, don't feel like you're losing anything. I haven't watched the Japanese yet, probably will, but like it's like a really, really fun movie. And like I thought it was great. So that's what made me happy this week, was like a new Miyazaki that I'd never watched before.
That's funny. Christian Bale is the voice of Howl in the American dub or the English dub of Howl's Moving Castle.
And Adam West does the voice of Kiki in Kiki's Delivery Service.
So clearly Miyazaki loves Batman, even though all these happened. This happened before Christian Bale was Batman. He just knew.
So I did not watch. Well, I did kind of watch a Miyazaki movie that I'll make a reference to here, but the movie I'm excited about this week, because we're all apparently doing kids' movies this week, is The Great Mouse Detective.
This is what you get when you put three dads on a podcast. Laura,
Oh,
come back, Laura.
Sorry, listeners. Yeah, so I won't go on like we did about Miyazaki because it doesn't quite deserve it, but I will say I absolutely love Ratigan. Ratigan remains like the rat king of crime. And I had forgotten that he was voiced by Vincent Price.
Oh my God, he is? That's awesome. Amazing. I need to watch that now.
Yes, absolutely. And the Miyazaki connection is that the kind of big climactic scene, which is like a chase through the clock at the top of Big Ben, that scene inspired by Miyazaki's incredible clockwork castle in Lupin III, Castle of Cagliostro.
Oh.
So there was kind of a direct inspiration there. So this is also a great movie. If you get that Disney Plus, you can fire this one up. It's probably the first movie in what is one of the most amazing runs that any movie studio has ever made, the Disney Renaissance. And there's been tons written about the Disney Renaissance, but I think it starts here with the incredible burlesque scene that's dropped weirdly into the middle of this movie, where a bunch of mice strip and tell you like let me be good to you is the head of the song. And yeah, it would never happen in a Disney movie today. And so that's why this one's super excellent. It's 1986. And then, like I said, kicks off the most incredible run. Like it's followed up by The Little Mermaid. Actually, this one's followed by like the Little Mermaid, and then there's Aladdin, and it's like off from there. It just goes off.
Wow, I didn't realize that Great Mouse Detective was that early. It's one of those movies like I remember watching a ton on VHS, and I've just got these weird flashes of memory from it, but I don't actually remember almost anything about it apart from like Ratigan being vaguely scary and something about that clock tower scene, and that's about it. That's all I really remember. Something about an airship or something?
Yeah, Yeah, you remember it pretty well. I was only halfway watching it, but it's good to put on for a toddler. Listen for those songs.
All right, sounds good. Well, listeners, then we're going to take a quick sec for a spoiler break, and we'll talk about the ending and some other details about Nuts. But if you're leaving us here, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. You can find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net, where you'll find our website, our searchable show notes page, where you can search the name of any game. If you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if The Short Game ever covered Game X, go do a quick search. The search feature of our website can sometimes be a little hard to find. You have to click on the show notes page, and it's on there, not on the main page, which I wish I could do anything about that, but I don't know how to use WordPress right. So you got to live with it. Sorry, friends. But go there and do a search. You'll find all of our past episodes. We've been doing this a while. You can also find our contact form there, and you can get in touch with us that way or suggest a game. And of course, you can also get in touch with us on Twitter @_shortgame. Or the best way to get in touch with us is that our patrons on Patreon, patreon.com/theshortgame, all of our patrons at even $1 a month get immediate access to our Discord community, which is where we talk about the games we're playing, we talk about and plan the show, and we just shoot the shit generally about stuff that is up. And we would love to have you. So if you go to patreon.com/theshortgame and support our show at even the paltry sum of $1 a month, which works out to pennies a podcast, let me tell you, then you get immediate access there, and we'll see you there if you join us. And okay, let's see. What else? My name is Reagan Kelly, and you can find me on Twitter @ReaganK. That's RayGank. Shane, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter @8BitShane.
And Nate, where can people find you?
On Twitter @NateSTL.
And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, your spoiler break. So I know you guys didn't quite get to the ending. I thought it might be worth just talking about it because we were talking about this offline, and the big question I had going into this game was, what direction are they taking this? They've got this big mystery set up with like, these squirrels have dynamite, which is like not like it's not exactly a hook. It's just like a weird thing, right?
That is a hook. It's the arm on the ground of Night in the Woods. It's the thing that makes you think, okay, there is going to be something more than just looking at squirrels, right? And that's what this game needs. You need to know this game isn't just going to be charting the path of squirrels, right? And that's why it's really smart, is they do that, and it's in the trailer and everything, because starting out the game, if you don't have that in your back pocket, that like this is about to get, like different to some degree, there's going to be some intrigue, then you may get really like, I don't want to set up these cameras and track these squirrels. And like, I think it's pretty smart to add that level of intrigue really fast.
So I will say this about it. I enjoyed the ending, but I was hoping for more weirdness. The feeling of like finding the dynamite in the squirrel den was something I was like, oh man, I really hope I find more weird shit in squirrel dens, and I hope that there's something really strange and mysterious going on here. And the strange mystery that was going on here was capitalism. So like, you are there doing an ecological impact study to study this like location that you're in, to make sure that there aren't any endangered animals there, so these people can build there, right? And of course, there are endangered animals there, and you're documenting them. But as the game progresses, it becomes obvious that the people that have hired you to do this, so this company Panorama that has hired you to do this what do you call this thing? This ecological impact study is basically ignoring your results and building anyway. So things that weren't supposed to have been done until after your ecological impact study, like clear cutting a bunch of trees or beginning construction on a dam, are happening anyway while you're still there. And they're publishing newspaper articles and other stuff with doctored versions of your photos with the squirrels edited out. They are publishing quotes from the people that the woman Nina that you're working with in newspaper articles about this construction project that are false. They're totally lying. And in fact, it seems like they may even be like attacking the dude who helps bring you food and stuff. Like nasty stuff is happening. They're not just trying to brush this study under the rug. They may literally be trying to kill you. And the conclusion of the game, I was sort of hoping to like find some way to stop them, right? But that's not how this goes down. The ending of the game is like first of all, you fall into this ravine, and you find a bunch of old equipment from the 1980s version of this study that's still there. And you're stuck there because they can't get. I think because of interference from the company, they can't get a rescue team to even bother going to save you. And they're building the dam, and there's a storm coming, and so this whole valley that you're in is going to fill up with water, and this whole forest is going to be washed away, and you have this kind of clock ticking. Now, I don't think there's actually a clock ticking on this because they said like within about a week, this whole area is going to be washed away. And listener, let me tell you, it took me 12 or 13 days because it was a very hard part of the game, and I had to keep moving my cameras and resetting the day again and again and again. So definitely took me longer than a week. I don't think there was an actual clock ticking on it, but it made you feel as though there was one. And finally, you have to sort of find out where all the squirrels are going, and the squirrels are leading you to a boat where when the dam finally breaks or whatever it is that happens and the whole valley is washed away, you Noah's Ark like float away on a boat full of squirrels and nuts.
It's like it's a little bit Firewatch, you get into the ravine and sort of uncover part of the mystery, and a little bit, oh brother, where art thou?
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, like Firewatch, Firewatch had that same feeling of like there's something weird going on in this valley, right? And then the weird thing that's going on seems in some ways like it could be like a big conspiracy or something weird, and then it turns out it's this much smaller, more personal story. It has that same kind of feeling of like it feels like there could be something really dramatic going on here, and there is to a degree. Like this company is like putting real human lives at risk and also annihilating an entire habitat that's pretty important. And these squirrels are way
smart enough to lead you to. Yeah, I was going to say, you started with the more normal stuff. The squirrel, I mean, at the very least, it's nice to know that you do get led to safety by a pack of squirrels. Mm-hmm. So there's that.
It's really
nuts.
It's really nuts.
You've reminded me of a inside joke for us Magic the Gathering nerds. The biggest creature of all time, a 15/15 Eldrazi Titan named Emrakul, frequently depicted being killed by 15 1/1 squirrels. So.
Nice. Yeah, I mean it's interesting when you set up a game like that where there's so much mystery. You kind of have like two ways to go, right? I'm thinking of Firewatch, where it's like, I guess this is spoilers for Firewatch, right? Where like you think it's going to be really
5 years old.
You think it's going to be, maybe it's government conspiracy, maybe it's aliens, maybe it's like a murder thing. There's all these different things, and it ends up being like, oh no, this was just like a
young boy tragically died.
Yeah, it's like the most normal, the most likely outcome of all these things. And then like the Night in the Woods, where it's like, oh, it actually is like a crazy massive conspiracy with like Cthulhu-like monsters and whatnot. And I appreciate both directions.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see a game like this.
This felt a little bit like it split the difference to me, because like it does have like, there is a conspiracy going on, but you never really see it. You never directly interact with anyone from Panorama, the company that's doing all of this evil shit. You only interact with the squirrels, and the squirrels are like mostly pretty normal. Like they're pretty normal squirrels, apart from the fact that they seem to repeat exactly the same actions every single night, and the game just sort of hand waves that as part of their behavior. It's it's a game. This is how we understand it works.
In quarantine times, aren't we all these squirrels?
We are all these
just
squirrels
doing the same thing just over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. But like the other thing about it is that it sort of implies that part of the reason these squirrels are like helping you out in the end is that one of these squirrels is literally a squirrel that that Nina befriended or helped raise when she was here last. Like she sees one of the photos and she recognizes it, and I'm like, how do you recognize a squirrel in a faxed photograph? And
that's what I'm saying. The camera
years later,
this printer is fantastic. It is
it's incredible.
The camera, the printer, the fax, peak of 1997 technology.
Incredible. But like it's implied there's like a history there. So but it's a sweet
and also
story.
Everyone knows squirrels live for 15 plus years.
Absolutely. So sweet story, and I really enjoyed the ending, despite having felt like there's some plot holes here, but that's okay because it was a really neat game, beautiful looking. I enjoyed the puzzles for the most part, apart from occasional grumbling when I had to schlep back and forth. I had a lot of fun with it, so I stand by my recommendation.
Yeah, I'm glad you finished it.
We were on a tight timeline this week, so it is what it is. But
it's worth playing all the way through.
Yeah, definitely is. So we've already done our outro stuff, so I can just leave you guys here. Thanks for joining me, and listeners, thanks for listening to The Short Game.